welcome back to the 26th episode of The Laura Show. I can't believe I made it 26 episodes. It just seems like yesterday that I actually got this started, and I want to just kind of go back and thank all of my guests for being with me because they were really helped me spearhead this whole thing. They believed in me when maybe I didn't or the team didn't, and they kind of got me through this first year. So this has been a lot of fun, but to ring in the finale, the 26th episode, I have a special guest here, Natalie von Teichmann.
Yes.
I think I nailed that.
I
nailed it. We're getting better with names as we go along.
You got it.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I met you very briefly at a Christmas market a couple weekends ago. I was with my girlfriends, and we went to Prince Edward County.
Yeah.
A bunch of us hadn't been there before, and we had actually another podcast guest owns Wander, the resort,
Yes.
Shannon Hunter,
Love.
so she had been on the show previously, and I was like, I have to go to this resort. Sounds
We went for dinner
fantastic.
there the night after the show.
Oh, you
It's
did?
So good. I love that.
So you went on the Sunday.
We went on the the show was Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Okay.
So I went the Saturday night.
Okay.
And it was
Well, I just missed you. I went the Friday night.
You did.
I went Friday night when we got in. Fantastic spot. And
Yeah.
like the little cabins that she has are
Oh,
even
I know.
her design aesthetic. I mean, we could go on and on.
Yeah.
But while I was there with my girlfriends, we happened to just stumble right across the street, there was this amazing Christmas market in this barn. And we were like, what is this? So we go in completely overwhelmed because it was jammed packed. Like it was quite the show. A lot of vendors and everything. And we happened to just walk by your booth quickly. And my girlfriend, Jen Valkoviak, who also put me in touch with another, oh my gosh, everything's coming full circle. Another guest, Wink and Wave. We had Amy on here. She's the owner of that company. Anyway, so Jen was like, oh, Laura, you should go back to that booth and you should have Natalie on your podcast. And I was like, what does she do? You know, like I don't know anything about her. And she said she does this amazing stuff with like gratitude and mental awareness, I guess, for children and things like that. So I kind of saunter back. I'm like, hi, like nerdy old me. Can I get your contact information? I have a podcast. And you're probably like, who is this girl? Like, what is going on?
Great. I loved it. It was amazing.
Well, good. I'm glad you're open to it because sometimes you think people are crazy.
No.
But you automatically were very, happy to do it and gave me your contact details, and here we are.
I'm very grateful.
Much appreciated.
And funny story about that barn. That is my brother-in-law's. That's the place. They call it the Eddy, and it's actually it's like a bed and breakfast, and basically they transform this whole barn into a Christmas market every year, and they do lots of different shows there. But I mean, they had so many people coming through that day, and I met tons of people.
Yeah.
And certainly was very excited when you offered for me to come on this podcast because I couldn't be more grateful when anyone can give me the opportunity to talk a little bit more about what I'm trying to do.
What it is that you do. I did some research the last week on exactly just to get a little bit better idea of the company and everything. But I kind of want to go back a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe, when we were off camera, you were talking about how you actually have some experience with cameras and stuff. So maybe you can kind of tell us your background a little bit and how you kind of came to be in this field.
For sure. It's funny when you find yourself in a place where you think, I never thought I would be here. But the crazy thing is this is exactly where I need to be. And where I am now, when I look back at all the things I've done in my life, I think, oh my gosh, this was what it was all leading up to. But I couldn't really see it because we get clouded with all the stuff that's going on. And, I was in school, I was a science grad. I loved biology. I loved health. I took health science. And
you went to Western, I think I read, right?
Yeah. That was my big thing. I wanted to be a pediatrician. I was like, that's what I want to do. And then in the summer, I ended up working randomly for a company that did promotions for Labatt. And I was like working in the beer industry.
That's what you do when the university is trying to pay the bills. Yes.
I took a hard left and went for pediatrics. And anyways, I did that, and I just loved the sales sort of part of it and loved being with people. And so then
you were a sales rep, going around?
Yeah, I went into bars and promoted with a partner of mine, basically beer and party.
Why didn't I have that job? I would have been great at that job.
It was such a fun job. It was like an experiential marketing job. It was fun. So anyway, then after I had a great time, I was like, I need to be a little more serious, and ended up working for Pfizer, a pharmaceutical company, straight out of university. So literally went straight there, and worked there for about 12 years. And that
what did you start?
You're gonna laugh. at what I did.
Okay. Am I
Yeah,
scared?
ready?
I'm scared.
Ready? I was one of the Ontario Viagra reps for many years.
Oh.
So I had
At that age too.
yeah, in my
This
early
is
20s,
classic.
and I had trunkfuls and storage lockers full of Viagra samples, and but really, in all seriousness, it was amazing because I actually spent a lot of time with the urologist in downtown Toronto. We actually talked about how these PDE5 inhibitors, which is sort of like the more pharmaceutical name for Viagra or all these other ones, but that actually how they were really helping with prostate cancer, and how if they were taken at low dose before surgery and after surgery, they were actually showing some really promising results.
Okay.
So I spent a lot of time doing rounds down at Princess Margaret Hospital, Sunnybrook, Toronto Western, Toronto General, and it was great. Then I had 4 kids, and so my husband.
Well,
and I,
you just say it like it just happened very quickly.
It did. It was 4
Oh,
years.
okay.
It was literally from year 1 to 4. We had 2 boys, and then we might have a girl on our 3rd time and got twin boys.
It's always the 3rd, and you get twins.
Yeah.
Guys, didn't we have Nikki, our last podcast guest? I think wasn't that her story too? They tried for the girl, and then she got twins.
Yes.
And she owns Wax On.
Oh, no, it's Lexi.
Yeah.
Lexi's a good friend of mine.
Oh, okay.
Lexi lives down the street from me.
Okay.
And in fact,
Of course she does.
Lexi was told multiple times, you need to reach out to this girl, Natalie von Teichmann, because she is living your life like 5-6 years ahead of you.
Yes.
So we have now met and actually become quite close friends because the exact same thing happened to her.
Yes, I knew. I was like, this story sounds very familiar to me. Yes.
Lexi and I
And did you get any girls the second?
No, they're all
so
boys.
4 boys.
They're all boys.
God bless.
Yeah, we got a girl dog after that.
Okay.
Called it a
That you
day.
were like, this I can control.
Done.
This I know what I'm gonna
Done,
get
done,
here.
done.
Well, amazing. Okay,
Yeah,
so
but
and
so
all
that's
under
what-
the age of 4.
All under the age of 4. And so, that was a little wild. And then once they got to, I think when the twins were around 2, I had done a little bit of sort of modeling in my past life when I was younger. And I thought, I really love the camera and I love being in front of the camera. Maybe I'll go back and do a little bit of acting, commercials.
And so, sorry, when you had the kids, did you quit the Pfizer job?
I worked for the first year when our eldest Will was born. I then had Hudson, and then after Hudson, I stopped.
Okay.
And so then I was home. We had the twins. I was like, I call it extreme parenting. So I was extreme parenting.
What
These
does that
4
mean?
kids. It means like it was insane.
All in. Okay.
Like we're talking double tandem nursing my twins when
getting
my
hot just listening to
2-year-old
this.
comes up to me wearing a diaper and being like, Mama, I want to, can I pee in the potty?
Right.
And I was like, sweetheart, not today.
Like, if you can
Probably
figure
not
it out on
tomorrow.
your own.
you're gonna have to fend for yourself. Like, it was extreme, and really, it was so amazing and fun. I look back, but it was a little bit of a black hole. Like, there's some parts of it I'm like I remember going for a run about when the twins were about 7 months old. No, 7 weeks old, not months, weeks. And I was running, and all of a sudden, it's a route I'd done all the time. And I stopped, and I was like, where am I? And I actually couldn't, I was so exhausted.
Right.
That I remember
You're
calling my
kind of just
husband,
going
and
through
I
the
sat on the
motions.
side of the street, and I started crying.
Aw.
And I was so just wiped,
Well,
And
7 weeks, my
it was-
goodness. Like, the fact that you're
Yeah.
out running, like, kudos to you. I would have been like, I'm putting my feet up. Like,
no, maybe I
if I'd
was running
have-
away from the house. I
Yeah,
just
that's
needed
true.
that, that feeling where you just need to go.
Yeah.
And I'd been a runner, so I really wanted to get back to that. But in any case, it was wild for a little while. And then I thought, what can I do that's just something for me and that I really love and I enjoy? And I got a little bit back into doing some television commercials and some acting, and I did a little bit of modeling, and that was fun and great. But it's funny, I remember this one day being on City TV in the morning and doing one of the fashion segments.
Yeah? Because you were modeling for the fashion set. Okay,
they
got it.
have
Yeah.
this is what you should wear for the Grammys, or this is what
They'll
you should,
come out with like a woman in a couple of different
like
outfits.
The style
Yeah.
girls who are amazing. They're great at what they do. So anyways, I remember sitting there in the green room, and I thought, I would love to come back here sometime with something that I've created, not just something that I'm wearing an outfit, and not to say that everyone who does that is great, but just my personal, what I felt like was, wouldn't it be cool if Sunday I could come on City TV and talk about something that is really passionate to me.
Were you talking as the model, or just modeling as someone else was
just
saying?
modeling as
like
someone
what
was talking.
Natalie's wearing
Yeah.
is this, right? Okay, that too, right? Because
Yeah.
it's not yours. You're kind of you are the product
Exactly.
in that regard.
Exactly.
So I thought maybe if I could be on the other side, I'd be the one explaining something.
Totally. That's sort of what I want to be, like the expert.
Yeah.
You know? And so, the story comes later that full circle I ended up doing that not too long ago. But
That's
but
so
it's interesting.
cool.
So I did that for a bit, and then I sort of then actually, to be honest, COVID hit. And like I'm taking you right through here, but like in a fast forward motion. But COVID hit, and I was the 29th person in Canada to be diagnosed with COVID. My big claim to fame.
That kind of is claim to fame, because I definitely was thousands and thousands and thousands deep.
And it was wild at the time.
Because at the time you must have been scared shitless.
I was. When I tell you now, I can talk about it in a very vivacious, funny, laughy way. But honestly, it was really, really
with
difficult.
4 kids too.
It was really difficult.
And how old are your kids now?
They are now 14, 11, and the twins are 9.
Okay.
So they would
So
have
your
been,
twins were 6?
Yeah, 5.
Okay.
5, yeah.
Yeah.
And so what happened was I was away in Vail on a ski trip with some girlfriends. I came home, I was sick. It was end of February 2020, before the world had shut down.
Yes.
And to make a long story short, I came home, wasn't feeling good. I came home after going to the hospital. It was a whole rigmarole experience there. 8 hours at the hospital, being put in, like it felt like in a movie when you're put into like an isolation room, and then you go through another
Like
door
it's
to
like
another.
E.T.
Yeah, and the doctors are looking at you through a screen,
Right.
and they come in wearing full hazmat, and I'm like, what is going on? Like this is
Like
wild.
you feel like you're like radiation material,
Oh, yeah.
radioactive.
Like, really. And then keep in mind, I also didn't feel good. So it wasn't like I'm looking around going, oh, this is weird. Like, like you're acting, whatever. No, like I felt really sick. And so it was scary. And I ended up having COVID. I was locked in my room for 11 days, didn't leave my bedroom. And that was really hard, because you don't realize when you're locked in one room for 11 days and you feel sick, it was a real mental shift for me.
Yeah, it's like solitary confinement. I mean, a little bit better than
with some
have it,
Netflix.
but
and
yeah, but that does go to show like how much people need that socialization, and
huge.
you can't just lock
hugely.
people away.
No.
Yeah.
And so I was locked in my room and had this virus that no one in the world had ever seen. And I'm watching the boys in the backyard jump on the trampoline, and they were okay, but I was really panicked. Is one of them going to get sick? We didn't know back then what happens to kids when they have COVID. What happens to us? Like, I didn't know. I was called every day by Sunnybrook and by public health, and giving them my temperature and giving them every little symptom I had.
You were the first data point, one of the first data
I was
points.
the guinea pig.
Yeah.
And our house was the guinea pig. They actually had doctors come to our house in a hazmat suit and take the kids and my husband and test everyone. Remember the right up to your brain?
Oh, yes. Like behind your eyeball.
Yeah. But I'm in my room going, is everyone going to be okay? And so what happened to me is I ended up getting really mentally, it was really difficult for me mentally. And I looked at my life and I said, wow, I've been really physically fit, but where am I at with my mental practice? And I'm a yoga teacher, and I've been doing, I've been doing meditation before that. I sort of fell into it through my yoga practice and through my yoga instructor, and I loved it, and a lot of breath work I loved. But I then dove really deep into it, because I ended up having to talk to a therapist because of my issue with COVID, because of going through that whole experience. I actually had a little bit of PTSD.
Right.
And it was really scary. And I couldn't, every morning I'd wake up and I'd be like, what's wrong with me today? How am I breathing?
Right.
How are my headaches?
Like you literally thought I might not make it. Right? Like at that time, that's a
honestly
legit
was
concern.
rewriting my will.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't think I'm going to make it. And it was really scary. And so I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I need to talk to someone. And I did. I ended up talking to someone on Zoom, but she was not just a therapist. She was like a mindfulness. She really was into mindfulness. Really.
Was that like accidental?
Totally accidental.
Okay. Because you were probably just like, I just need a therapist.
I was like, I need a therapist.
Right.
And she just was focused on that. It was crazy. Every time we'd have a session, she would do like 15 minutes of it. And then I started feeling like, oh, this is really working. Like this grounding, this feeling of like coming into myself is like really helping me feel like understand what it means like to be in the moment. Because, when we spend too much time in the future, we can get anxious. If we spend too much time in the past, we can feel depressed.
Yeah.
But when we're in the in the present, we're right here, right now, together. and it's okay.
Yeah.
And so it was that feeling that helped me get through what I was struggling with physically. And all of a sudden, all the physical stuff started falling away and when the mental stuff cleared. And I realized
that's
the connection.
so interesting. You growing up, parents, schooling, anyone that you came in contact with, was mindfulness, meditation ever part of any conversation that you had with
The
kids?
only time I ever remember doing it was in a drama class in grade 6 in the gym on a mat. And my drama teacher, I think his name was Mr. Wykes or something, or Sykes, or I can't remember. Anyway, and I remember doing it and laying there, and I remember thinking of a field, and I remember it feeling so lovely. But that was it.
Oh, you had a much better experience than I did with my first meditation.
did?
Yeah, so it would have been gym class, grade 11, and they got us to all lie down, and they were like, hey, we're gonna practice meditation. And I almost had a panic attack during, I'm so high strung, I have so much anxiety, I couldn't even get to the place. Like, that's how you know you really need it.
Yeah, totally.
Because they would be like, you know, relax your hands, and I'd be like, relax your eyes. Like, every time they brought my focus to something, it made me more stressed out. Like, I had to leave.
On it. Yeah.
So, you know, I knew early on that I probably needed it, but it wasn't until later in life, like the last couple of years, where I'm like, actually, COVID for me too.
It was a lot of people.
A lot of people during COVID, like just that being at home. And I remember thinking, I need to start a meditative practice. And I kind of like journaled my journey a little bit, but it's not easy for most people. Like, I never grew up with this stuff. Like, I don't know if most people did.
We didn't.
Certainly from here.
We didn't. And I think that's the challenge right now with all of it is that, you know, we grew up with our parents taking us to sports games, and we grew up going to school. But we didn't grow up learning this mental sort of fitness stuff. And I think the way I like to describe it to parents, which makes it easy for them to understand, because you're right, our generation didn't grow up with it. So it's hard for us to know how to teach it to our kids even, because we're learning it ourselves. Like you were just saying, like 2 years ago I started it. Well, we started it in COVID when we were all making banana bread. And
yeah, like I'm no expert on the topic.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so really it's for us to then be teaching it to our kids, it's almost like social media. We're growing up with social media the same time our kids are. So we don't have like an anchor or an experience as a child that, oh, I remember my mom teaching me how to navigate Instagram.
Well, we're really just not experts at
phones,
it.
Right?
Right? And so if kids are going to ask you about it, you're kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah. And that fear, that sort of not knowing makes you let's just not go there.
Yeah.
And so, you know, really I had this epiphany when I was in my room and I started doing all this mindfulness and I started delving into courses and I started recording them myself, and I actually had a really cool thing happen. I did a Deepak Chopra 21-day meditation challenge with a bunch of friends.
Okay.
And one of the challenges was you had to create your own group. And I jumped on it. So I in WhatsApp, I had a whole bunch of my friends. I said, guys, do you want to start a challenge? I'm going to send you meditations every day. And you're going to write back and you're going to say, day 1 done, day 2 done, day 3 done. So we all had accountability. And it was the coolest thing I've ever done, because we weren't together through COVID, but we were sort of creating this community,
like an experience together, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
And meditation is a very personal thing.
Yeah.
And so it's not like a lot of people are coming together to meditate. You really, everyone's different. And I don't think one of the worst things we can do is put pressure on ourselves to be like, I'm a good meditator, I'm a bad meditator. Like, no, throw that out of the
but
window.
I am a bad meditator.
I know, but I
I can safely say that. Yes.
And I think that like the part of becoming even a good, not even a good meditator, but part of like understanding it is just throwing all those preconceived, this is the person I am, I'm high strung, I'm da-da-da.
Right.
Because guess what? I am too. Like, I am like type A, go,
Well,
go.
and it's kind of that being aware of what is the language that you're using to tell yourself, like good or bad, versus, you know, I think a lot of people who are good at meditating are people who don't put pressure on it, right? Like they know, like your mind is going to wander, but come back.
Yeah.
Where I was like that kid was like, if I didn't get straight A's, I was a failure.
Yes.
Right? So to me, it's like black and white. You either succeed or you fail versus the journey.
Yes.
And that's something that like a lot of us are kind of learning, unfortunately, late.
Yep.
This would have been very helpful for me to have known.
Well, that's
back in
it.
the day.
And that's exactly why I want to create it for kids, because when they're little, this is when all the neural pathways are starting to really like, you know, come together, and then when they start to learn, how do I view myself in the world and where am I at? And you know, I was thinking, this is really interesting. As a parent, we wouldn't put our kids in a game of hockey if we'd never held a stick or shot a puck. We'd practice it, before game time. So the physical fitness thing we get, right? We get physical fitness, we practice before the game. Same thing with education. You wouldn't put your child in like a test for multiplication if they never had the opportunity to practice the multiplication before the test. But with mental fitness, we wait till there's a problem, and then we react.
You're right.
Because we
That's
grew up
so
practicing it.
Western culture too,
Right?
right? Wait until there's a problem and then treat it. So what made you so you were obviously practicing on yourself and using you and your friends as like a great community and time to like, you know, really sink into it. When was the aha moment that you thought, wait a second, this needs to be done way sooner? Was it something that you saw in your kids, or you just happened to just say, like, I wish I knew this when I was a kid, so that's when you said, I'm going to create something around it?
It was a combination of that, to be honest. It was looking at our 4 boys, being busy, doing a million and one things. I would say the biggest impetus for me to push forward was, I wish I had known this. I wish that I just had some foundation of understanding what it means to actually breathe and what it means to feel calm. So it's one thing to say it, and we say to our kids, calm down, take a deep breath.
That's the opposite of calming anyone
right?
down.
And it's like, if we say to our kids, calm down, kids, especially in this generation, everything is on demand, everything is fast. So saying to them, calm down, is like saying to them, write a test in multiplication when they've never even seen multiplication before. They don't even know what calm feels like.
Right.
Feels like, not to hear it, but what does actually calm feel like in your body?
Yeah, when someone's saying calm, what does that mean?
What is that? How do I get
like,
there?
what's my heart rate? What's my, you know, am I perspiring? Am I not? Are my thoughts controlled or calm or happy? I don't know.
And,
right?
what am I doing? And I think one of the biggest things we're trying to do with kids nowadays is teach them a little more about resilience, teach them a little more about, you know, step one is, okay, feel your feelings. We didn't really grow up feeling our feelings. It was like, push them down, get straight A's, you know, push yourself, don't feel, blah, blah, blah. And look
work
right
harder,
on the
work
outside,
harder, work harder,
right?
work harder, yes.
That's what we grew up with. This generation's different. You know, they're being told, feel your feelings. It's okay. And that's great. We need to feel our feelings, but then we need to take it to step 2. So we feel our feelings. We're all in touch. That's great. Let's just not wallow in a feeling. And all feelings are feelings. There's not good. There's not bad.
Yeah.
There's more uncomfortable feelings. But what I wanted to do was tell kids, okay, these are your different feelings, but now what? What are some of the strategies to take it to step 2? What are some of the things you can have in your tool belt that you can learn when you're a kid, that as you get older and we inevitably encounter really uncomfortable situations, as we all do and will happen, what are some of the things that we can come to on the inside so we don't pacify with drugs, alcohol, food, perfectionism, all of those sort of things that can lead us into really uncomfortable.
Right. There's like more productive ways, I guess, to deal with feelings. So
we call it like healthy coping.
Yeah,
right?
healthy coping.
How
I like that. Yeah.
How do we come up? I was at a talk recently with Dr. Lisa, who has her own podcast, but she mentioned that, and I thought it was really great. It's healthy coping, and so how do we come up with these tools? What are they? And when we learn them when we're kids, it's part of our foundation.
Well, and think that's years and years and years and years and years of practice by the time you get to be my age,
Totally.
or our age, where, you know, I'm like a couple years into this, right?
Yeah.
So imagine your kids probably have a lot more practice with it than I even do.
Totally.
Okay, so you're thinking, wanna instill this in kids.
Yeah.
We need to start teaching these things. At what point do you say we're going down the mindfully and Tate route? Like, what was kind of that? Did you have like a list of 15 ideas and that was the best one, or you went straight to that?
Totally. I've always been that girl that has like the book beside her table. That's like, here's another business idea. It's a joke in my family. Idea. But this was really
idea and no execution.
Totally, right? Like, great idea. Let's I get like halfway to first base and be like, abort.
Yeah.
Because I am a little bit like I like things to move and go, and if it doesn't kind of go, I'm like, okay, next thing.
Right. You kind of maybe look at a roadblock as like a no, don't go down this path, versus maybe something you just have to step over a little.
Exactly.
Well, it depends on the type of roadblock.
It
but
does.
yes,
it does.
We'll
You're
talk
right.
about that
You're
too.
You're right. But I was sitting there and I went online. So I'm like, you know, recovering from COVID. We're all in lockdown, and I'm looking online for like tools to teach kids about meditation or mindfulness. And keep in mind, I have 4 boys who like put helmets on one of the twins, and take ropes and fly downstairs on mattresses. Like this is not this is not a calm zen outhouse.
Got it. Yes, I can picture this.
Far from. And so it wasn't that I wanted to teach my kids to be like zen walking, because that's not reality. But I wanted to.
You're not saying you need to be some type of guru, right?
No, no. And what I wanted to do though was teach them just some tools for when life gets uncomfortable, how to deal with it. How do we get through like really hard stuff? And that was my main reason for doing it. So I went online, couldn't find anything. I found something called like a breathing buddy, where you put a stuffed animal on your belly, and when you breathe in, it goes up. When you breathe out, it goes down. So it kind of teaches that idea of like, what really is your breath? Like, how does your breath help you? And we know that like, if we start to understand about the breath, it's incredible. Like you can literally shift from a sympathetic nervous system, which is your stress, your sort of stressed out, go part of your nervous system, to your parasympathetic, even by sort of manipulating the breath by taking long, deep breaths. It's actually, it's like scientifically proven. It's amazing. So I was like, how do we teach this to kids? Found the breathing buddy, whatever. Looked at meditation. I thought, hang on a minute. What if I write meditations and then I record them for the kids? So I started doing that, and then I would have them grab a little stuffed animal.
Okay.
And we'd go and we'd lay on the trampoline outside, and I would put some music on, and I give them a little essential oil from my doTERRA stuff, and I do a meditation. And they started loving it. Like they love this like idea of cuddling a toy, and it was this sensory thing. And I'd done a couple of sort of just play from your phone. You know, you can do like the different apps.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of great kids stuff, but something was missing. It was missing between the phone on the bedside table, listening to a story. There was something that wasn't connected.
The tactile thing, you think? Okay.
Totally.
Yeah.
So the minute that I put it inside of a little puppy, which in our case we did a puppy because we have a dog who's like a zen out dog, so I chose a puppy.
I actually have here, like, why the dog?
That is exactly right.
Okay. What kind of dog is it that you have?
She's a red retriever, but she's like
Like a fox red?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And her name's Cava, Cava. And
Sorry, Cam, we're bringing out our dogs here because I have a fox red lab.
Oh,
but
yeah.
he's not that red.
So she's a little more red than
yes.
this. But
you guys know Rudy. We talk about him a lot on the show. But okay.
She's just the sweetest,
that's so cute.
calmest thing.
Oh, my dog's not. He could use some meditation.
Yeah, he needs a tape.
Yeah. Clearly, he's learning from his mother.
Yeah.
Yes.
But so, anyways, I put this little. I thought, what if I put a little Bluetooth speaker in each of their stuffed toys? So I went like a bit of a crazy serial killer.
Like,
grabbed a knife.
Okay.
We actually have a picture of me making my first prototype. And I said to my husband, we could never show that to anyone because I'm literally taking a knife to a stuffed animal. Like, it looks crazy. It's crazy. But I sewed, which I'm not great at this stuff, but I did. I sewed like the Grinch, making this little, like, loop. Yeah. And I put a little Bluetooth speaker in the belly, and then I tested it with my kids. And they just loved it. Like, they loved it. It helped them sleep. It helped them feel calm. And to make a long story short, I was telling her, she's a parenting expert, Rue family here in Toronto. Okay. She's amazing. And she was like, Nat, do you think like, I was like, can I give you one and see what you think? And she was like, yeah. So I did, and she loved it. And then I did a little neighborhood.
Were you just picking any type of stuffed animal, or was always the dog?
I initially did the dog.
Okay.
And so I went online and I grabbed a bunch of, and then I just started looking at different puppy dogs and started picking. I like that one's nose. I like that one's fur. I like that one's the way that one is, and the size, and the da-da-da. And all of a sudden, I started building my business.
Wow.
And that's where it came from.
Ain't that funny? I think a lot of people think there is some mega idea and you have it all planned out. Oftentimes, the best businesses really start out of like a need, recognizing not like a gap in the marketplace per se, but just like, I need something.
Yeah.
And it doesn't exist and I can't find it, so I'll just make it for myself.
That was totally 100% it. And then once I got into it, I was like, whew, okay, this is a big undertaking. Like, this is not just halfway to first base. Like, I had started going around, and all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute. So if I've got this toy and I'm gonna play meditation audio tracks through it, I need to create the technology to actually
Like
play
you
it
need the
through.
app as well.
I need the
right?
app.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, I was becoming a bit of a technology company because I was creating, not only writing the content, so I was writing the content myself, I was coming up with the ideas, I was recording it, I taught myself how to use GarageBand and all this audio stuff.
How did you teach yourself all these things?
YouTube hours, you know, like
yes.
I'm sure you've done.
Yeah. Oh, well, the first time I helped start a podcast, I was like, how to start a podcast.
Yeah.
Like, people don't realize, like, people don't just know how to do things. Like, you have to figure it out, learn, get resourceful, right? So you're even, like, testing your prototype on your friends.
Totally.
Right? It's not like you know it's a slam dunk or, like, I know some executive who's just going to build me a prototype.
Yeah.
You're making your own, and,
Yeah.
and you kind of go from there. Okay, so the friends love it.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
So what's the first thing that you do next?
I just started posting stuff on Instagram. I opened an Instagram thing, like an account. I figured out, I did my IP. I went to my lawyers. I got all my IP done, so I made sure that was taken care of.
Did someone tell you that you needed to do that, or you just instinctively
There's a
knew?
great podcast that I started listening to. I'm a big podcast listener. I love to walk my dog or run in the morning, and I love podcasts. There's some really great ones that I listened to over the years around building businesses, and one of them was called The Toy Coach.
Okay.
And I just Googled it, business podcast on toys, and she was really helpful to how to start working in this industry, in this field. I signed myself up for a random trade show, had no experience, had to get a backdrop made, like winging it next level. Showed up in California with my mom
Oh my
for this
goodness.
4-day trade show and put it out there.
Yeah.
I didn't even have order forms. It was a trade show where small boutique toy stores come.
So what were you hoping, just to sell tape from the desk?
Not even, because it wasn't consumer facing. It was just store people who would come and order, say, I want a bulk order for my store. So it would be mom and pop toy store from Illinois was walking around and be like, oh, I like your tape puppies. I'd like to order them. But what was really interesting is I'm sitting there and I had so many people come by and were going, meditation in kids? Like what? And this was just after COVID.
In California too, you think
I
if
was
anywhere
surprised.
was going to be open to that
Totally.
concept, it would be there.
And it still is meditation kids, really, really, it seems crazy. But what's very interesting is after I left that show, all of a sudden, this sort of talk in the toy industry started growing. And you've probably heard of STEAM toys or STEM toys. They stand for, you may not have, but they stand for science, technology, science, technology, engineering, and math.
Okay.
And it was like a category, an accreditation of toys that came out many, many, many years ago to help support kids in this area.
Right.
So it's not, and they're toys that actually get a stamp. They say they're STEAM toys.
Okay, so
or
parents
STEM
kind of
toys.
know when they're picking toys, like these ones will help with these types of skills. Okay.
So what happened was there was this group out of the States who started saying, we've just been through COVID. The American Academy of Pediatrics has identified that kids' mental health this is an emergency. And I mean, I could rhyme out 1,000,000,001 stats to you from Canada and from the States of where children and grown-ups, but mental health through COVID just took a massive dive. And all of a sudden, the toy industry went, wow, we need to support kids because we know that kids learn through play.
Yeah.
So how do we support kids? And one of the things that came out of it was this initiative called MESH Toys, and it stands for Mental, Emotional, and Social Health.
Okay.
So I happened to be listening to a podcast this one day. I reached out to the girl who started it. She's amazing. Her name's Rachel Harmuth, and she's out of the States. And I said, I want to be on your group. I want to be on your advisory board. How can I be a part of it? She was incredible. I jumped on board, and I've been the only Canadian who's a part of this group. And what we're doing is we are really bringing this sort of category of toys to the forefront and saying, how can we support kids in this area?
I want to interrupt you just quickly because, you kind of glossed over just making this call. A lot of people wouldn't make that call.
Yeah.
They would say, oh, I'm going to look stupid, I'm Canadian, it doesn't even make sense market-wise, or I don't even really have a product yet that's anything, why would someone listen to me? And they would go through all these, things in their mind that would really prevent them from even making the call. But was it easy for you to do it? Did you have to talk yourself up to it?
Sometimes I talk myself up to it, and sometimes I just do it. Sometimes if you think too much, you think yourself out of it.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's just that idea. From the minute I started this business, my philosophy has been just keep moving forward. I've sent Tate to some people who I still can't believe that I've done it. And I'll literally show up somewhere and I'll bring a Tate, or I'll put a Tate in a mail to some big influencer or someone who's just in my eyes like, oh my gosh, but at the end of the day, I think they all started somewhere. They're all just people. And I'm so passionate about what I'm doing. And I think what really, really drives me, Laura, is the messages I get from people, the messages I get from parents. It's not like this is just something that's worked for me and my family. Like, oh great, I really want this to do well. Like when I hear from parents that Tate has, helped their child finally fall asleep, really personal things about children are going through really difficult situations. Some of the stuff we're doing with Ronald McDonald House, like it's incredible.
Yeah.
And I go, this needs to get out there.
And I think people sometimes want that mega push at the start, right? They want like the real proof.
Yeah.
But sometimes it is just one DM one time, and then you build off of that, right? Like it's not like, I help train other real estate agents, right?
Yeah.
So of course it would be ideal to be overnight the biggest training company for real estate agents in North America. That would be amazing for people to say, Laura, I want you on my podcast, or Laura, I want you to come down and train all these people. It's not like that. It's literally like, I helped train someone for free, and then they like sent me an email after saying like, thanks, I really appreciate it. Or you helped me through a dark time, or we were sitting in the office and people cried to me and like I hugged them and they're like, oh, thanks so much. Yeah. It's those little moments that you kind of have to use as momentum toward the bigger things,
you do.
Right?
And it's not to say that it is so much about consistency. It's so much about just the journey. So it's what we talked about at the beginning when we first sat down is like, I think our society, we so badly want to start, we want an end. We go into social media, we see all these people, we compare ourselves to Justin Bieber, who went on YouTube once and was a smash hit, and now he's, this is like the teeny 0.00000%. What really I think makes you stand apart, I think as a business owner, what I'm learning is it's about the journey and it's about that stuff in between, and that's what meditation and mindfulness is about.
Right,
so it's about the present journey, and it's not about trying to always get to the end and have the end goal. It's just about being in it, and in it sometimes it's really uncomfortable, sometimes it's great, sometimes it's really uncomfortable.
Well, and when people tend to feel uncomfortable, sad, angry, they want immediately to get out of it, right? So it's what can I do to distract myself to get out of this uncomfortable feeling? Where from what I hear with meditation and stuff, it's like it's not distracting yourself, it's sitting with it a little bit, right? And why does this make me uncomfortable? Because anger is a very human emotion. So if being happy is accepted, then why isn't being angry accepted? Or why isn't being sad accepted? But again, I think it's because we overvalue happiness. I'm now starting to, in my almost 39, not quite yet, but by the time that this recording's out, 39 years, I'm starting to realize like peacefulness, not happiness, and being at peace with all of the emotions, right? And that's kind of now more what I'm like, oh, that's what I should have been striving for.
Totally.
Because I don't know if your parents did this. My parents, as long as you're happy, as long as you're happy, you're like, well, I'm not happy all day, so like I just look for happiness all the time, right? And that's like millennials, we're always just looking for that quick fix.
Yes, we are.
Because I think our parents, no one told them to even worry about happiness. So they were trying to compensate for their lack of anyone caring if they were happy.
Totally.
And then they taught us happiness. And now we're like, oh no, now we need to teach peacefulness.
No, you're so
And there's probably going to be another, your
something
kids are going
else.
to teach something else, right?
Every generation has a different thing that we jump on board with and start to go, oh, this is the next best thing and whatever. I think we're getting better. I think we're improving. I think that, when you think about it with kids and teaching emotions, I talk about this a lot. It's like with kids, emotions are like, when you have a play date over at your house and a kid comes to your house, and some play dates are amazing and they come in and they share your toys. Like emotions are like play dates, They come in, they work with you, it works. Other times you get a play date that comes in and this kid is like a disaster. They play with your toy, they break your Lego, they eat the snack first, and you just have to sit there and take it. But guess what? Your play date doesn't live in your home. Your play date comes and then your play date goes. So your emotions don't always live in you. They come, they hit you, you feel them like that play date that you feel, but then you get to say, goodbye, you don't live here. So they come and go.
And that's actually pretty great. I don't have kids, so I don't always think of everything from like the children's reference, but I can think to my own experiences as a kid. I'm like, that's actually quite helpful.
Yeah.
And they're going to leave.
They're leave. They're gonna
be
leave. It's like also like waves in an ocean.
Yeah.
I say to my kids,
Or
have you
clouds
ever
in the
seen,
sky, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen an ocean that's not moving at all? That's completely still? No. Even if the waves are little, but there's always waves coming in, and sometimes they're huge and they plow you over. But the waves always come in and go out, just like emotions, right? They come in and they go out, and it's this idea of sitting through it. And when we learn to sit through discomfort, then as a child, then we learn as we get older that, again, the whole goal is how to internally get through these uncomfortable feelings, get through step one. Oh, I'm feeling uncomfortable. What is my healthy coping technique? Is it drugs? Is it alcohol? Is it food?
Yes. Oh, right. Sorry, I thought that was a question to me.
Done.
Yes.
Where's the wine?
No, yeah, exactly.
But right, or and listen, my husband works for a wine company. We have our own wine brand, actually.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's a whole other story. But we support bullying prevention with our wine brand. But so I'm not saying. I just mean when
Of
it's
course.
abusive,
No, I know.
right?
I
When
know.
it gets to be too much.
You don't want negative coping strategies.
Right. And so how do we come up with some of the positive things? And when we teach them when we're young when they're young, that really helps. Really helps.
Speaking of your husband and stuff, you're starting this business. You have 4 kids.
Yeah.
How is it juggling it all? Has everyone always been supportive? Like family or like your external family too, you know what I mean? Like friends and stuff, because saying like, you got enough on your plate. Why are you adding this? You know, you have another company. Have you heard those things? How did you get over them?
Yeah, I have. I think it's really important for me to come back to baseline constantly. It's a constant practice for me because what I want to do is take it on. I'll do it. I'll get the teacher gifts. I'll be the class parent. I'll do it. I love it. It's really important for me to remember that I have an inner child inside of me, and I need to always foster that relationship. So my husband is amazing. He is my best friend. I am his biggest fan.
Married for how long have you been
married for this? You're gonna make me. I'm gonna laugh because I screw it up all the time. He knows my anniversary.
I don't even know the date of mine. I messed it up.
It's terrible. We're on like 15 years now.
Okay, wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you. He's like at my everything in the whole world. And so, but when I started my own business, I was always home with the kids. He was working. He's an entrepreneur. He's had 3 different companies, gone through selling one, has 2 still. And his job isn't sort of a 9 to 5 coming home. He travels a lot. And when this happened, it was a transition for us. This time last year, when I launched about a year ago, was really hard. And it was hard for my friends. I had one good friend who was like, Nat, you're not reaching out to me anymore. Where are you? And then you feel guilty because, no, I don't want to drop that. You're trying to juggle all the balls. And for Andrew and I, it was a bit of a transition. And now we are smooth. I will say the best thing that came out of it was he, 2 years ago, had no idea who was playing hockey, what the schedule was, any of these things, nothing. He now is on it. Like, he's on as much as I am, and we are such a team.
Well, it's funny because he probably has that much more appreciation for what it was that you were doing, and vice versa.
Totally.
Right? Because sometimes people can say, well, divide and conquer, which is great, but dividing also doesn't allow you to kind of like live in the other person's shoes as much, and you do become not as appreciative of what the other half is doing.
Well, and I'm so now appreciative of owning a business. Like, he would come home and be like, he's a very positive person, but there's times where it's hard. And I never got it. And now I get it. And now I think he gets what it's like being with the kids a little more.
This detail-oriented on every little thing and making sure that we're where we need to be on time with the gifts and all the things, right?
The gifts, yeah.
You mentioned something about the friends. It's interesting, right? I think family and friends, they tend, because they want to be comfortable. We are all trying to find comfort, right? And when people do things that are outside the norm, or what we perceived as the norm up until that point, all of a sudden it makes us comfortable. So I find it's rarely, like, particularly with friends and family, not the outside world and rest of society, but they almost have to like mourn in a way like who you were, how that relationship was to move forward. And some people are better at it than not, because it takes self-awareness. Like, your friends have to say, look, I understand we're not talking as much, but you're doing something that makes you happy, and I want to be supportive of that. And I'm sad because I just miss you. That would be probably a healthy expression of it. But sometimes it's, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
And why are you striving so much? And it's kind of like that becomes that crabs in the bucket.
Yes, it does.
Right?
It does. It really does.
Did that ever make you question what you were doing?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and you know, there's days where, like right now, for example, it's holiday time, and I've always been that mom that does the gingerbread house making, host that, and I do all the things, and I feel like I'm juggling. I'm always juggling. It's hard, and you have to say to yourself, what is my mission? Why am I doing this? Why did I start this company? What is this all about? And it's this constant internal discussion with yourself, really acknowledging where am I at. And it's also like, I think of life in terms of seasons, and some seasons can be like even from like physical exercise. Sometimes you're going to be more into hardcore weights, and sometimes you need to do some yoga, and sometimes you need to just pull it right back. And you know, it's you have to really listen to where your body is at in the moment, and make sure that you are living your life on the outside that you are on the inside. And when it doesn't groove, that's when you get the stress and when you have that tension.
And it's funny because I think meditation helps with that, right?
does.
That kind of like sitting, like how do I feel, versus us always trying to kind of fight through everything all the time, because we should be better. Like
That's what we were taught.
We were taught that.
We were taught to fight through, dig your heels in, suck it up, buttercup.
Yeah.
And get
Which I still get a lot of pride out of.
I do too. So here's the thing. I think, in a weird way, the pendulum has swung so far that sometimes we have this society that's just all like, everything will come and let it be. You gotta have some grit.
Yes.
You gotta have some hustle. Starting a business, I couldn't have started what I was doing if I didn't make the phone calls, if I didn't put myself out there, if I didn't dig my heels in and get really nervous about certain things.
Did you get a lot of no's too?
Yes.
Yeah, because we didn't talk about the no's. You kind of went straight to the when it worked out. But like, you know, I'm sure people are hanging up on you, slamming the door closed in your face.
You get so many no's, and you have to be persistent. And sometimes a no today might not be a no tomorrow. So sometimes you're just not quite big enough. You're like, I just started. I know what I have is great, but maybe who I'm reaching out to is really huge, and I'm just not big enough. I'm not as established enough.
Right. Or maybe you can't fulfill an order that they would need. Like if we're going to bring you into our store, we're going to need 500 units.
Yeah.
And then now you're thinking, well, I can only churn out X amount of these at a time. Actually, I have a question about that with Tate. I'm gonna little Tate. Oh, he's so meditate. So that's why he's called Tate.
Yes.
So this is the dog.
Yep.
I feel like I had a pet last year. Hi,
Yeah.
baby.
Tate has a little Bluetooth speaker.
So he's got a
inside of
Bluetooth
his
speaker.
belly.
So is this wasn't the dog that you were buying. You've now created your own
I've created
dog.
my own. Yes,
Okay.
I've manufactured my own. There's a little Bluetooth speaker in its chest.
Yeah.
Tate
It feels like a pacemaker.
Yeah, totally. Literally, and when it plays, it vibrates a little bit.
Does
for
it
kids,
open?
which
Like,
is- yeah,
in case?
there's a
Okay,
Velcro
gotcha. So
opening.
you can get in
there's
there.
also a little headphone jack so the kids can listen with headphones.
Oh.
And Tate has these little shapes on its paws. And
Yes.
they're called Tate's breathing paws. And the way it works is it teaches kids about, for example, infinity breathing or box breathing. And I mean, fun fact about box breathing is they practice box breathing, square breathing, however you want to call it, in the Navy SEALs when they're under extreme stress.
In for 5.
Hold
or whatever?
Inhale, hold, exhale, hold. But there's a star, there's a triangle, and then Tate has a little essential oil heart on its chest that kids can put essential oils on. So it's this whole multi-sensory thing, and it's attached to the Mindfully content. And Mindfully is basically our umbrella company. My goal is to have more of these little
Okay, that's what I
things
wanted to
come.
ask you too.
Yeah.
Because why not just call it Tate?
Yeah.
Or meditate.
Yeah.
And have that as a company. Why
Yeah.
another? What made you make that decision?
I just want to have that umbrella company so that I can add different little
and maybe it's not a stuffed animal in the future.
or maybe more stuff, maybe a bunny, maybe a unicorn, who knows?
Right.
And add stuff on so that people have. So I'm creating a whole little group of little adorable, cuddly, multi-sensory plush toys for kids, and the content's interesting. Where the secret is in the sauce in terms of our content. We have it broken down into tons of different categories. There's adventure categories, which are magic tree houses, magic carpet rides. There's ones for affirmations, like I'm loved, I'm strong.
Where do you come up with
My brain
ideas?
is like a bit of a 6-year-old. I love it. It's my favorite part of what I do.
Okay.
We have categories for sports and for school. We have nature. We have so many different categories, and we're always adding content in. And the reason I did that was I could have created a toy where you push the paw and it says, take deep breaths, and da-da, and that would be simple. But I wanted to be able to have, technology is a double-edged sword in my life with 4 boys. So how can I create some technology that's for good? That was the first thing. The second thing was, I wanted this to be something that we could always update. So depending on what's happening in the world right now. So if there's forest fires, we put a meditation out called Plant a Hope Seed. If it's going to overnight camp time, we did some audio tracks on like how to get ready for overnight camp, how to get ready for your first day of school. What are some, like Tate even talks about some different breathing techniques or some different ways to think as you're going in.
Is it separated by age group?
Yes, so you can filter by age, you can filter by time. So we even have a Tate for tweens, which is a bit older section.
Oh, okay. Well, it's interesting, like, you know, when you think back to COVID, I mean, how much of us wish, because you could have easily, because it's Bluetooth and it's an app, that you could have easily just been like, okay, I need to create content around how to talk to your kids about COVID or how to get them to be comfortable. Or, you know, Black Lives Matter was a very stressful time for a lot of families and kids asking questions. And parents like, I don't know how to talk about this. I don't know what to do with this, you know. So instead of them turning to whatever, the news or whatever, you know, you kind of come here and say, like, when there's scary things going on in the world, the war in Ukraine, everything that's going on with Israel. Like, those are all, like...
It's a lot.
It's a lot for adults, let alone kids who really have no answers. Not that we have that many more answers.
It's a lot. And we create all of our content with the help of parenting experts, with psychotherapists, with communications experts. So we have, I consult with all of these people because my past work working for a pharmaceutical company, I'm really anal, for lack of a better word, about really making sure the content is legit and great. And that's where all of the, you know, why I wanted to come at this from an Eastern medical philosophy and a Western. So there's the meditation, the mindfulness, but there's the brain health, there's the neuroscience behind why it's really important to teach kids to keep their brains calm. There's a reason why there's so much anxiety going on. Yes, the pandemic was huge, but you know, social media, I mean, all of these, it's great. Social media is great for some things. I have a friend who found a liver transplant for her daughter on social media. It's also really, really bad.
But that's like everything in life.
It's like everything in life. Right? So we have to know how to navigate it, right?
Wow, I'm so impressed. Okay, so kind of as we wrap up, so you've been in business for a year. Yeah. Obviously, things are going well.
Yes.
I presume.
we actually have the coolest thing that I haven't even talked about that I just want to mention.
Yes.
Is back to social media. I put stuff out for Tate. I had a donor reach out to me say, I want to put a Tate puppy in every Ronald McDonald house across Canada. I would like to pay for that. And I was like, okay, so we put 2 puppies in every Ronald McDonald house across Canada, and they loved it. At the same time, not related, I had a wonderful girl named Sarah Baumer, who's she's on HGTV. She's amazing.
Oh yeah,
Sarah.
Of course, yeah.
Sarah, who I didn't know at all, reached out to me into my Instagram, sent me a little DM, and said, I'd love to talk about what you're doing. She is part of the group that is redesigning all of the Ronald McDonald Atlantic. So they're getting rid of their current Ronald McDonald houses. They're building one giant one. And she basically reached out to me, found out what we were doing, and she said, I want to put a Tate puppy. I would like to pay through our foundation and put a Tate puppy in every single, for every single family for the whole year of 2024-2025 in Ronald McDonald Atlantic. So she has been incredibly generous because their foundation is supporting this. So there's been some really neat things we're doing. We're doing a quality improvement project with South Lake Hospital, which is an affiliation of Sick Kids. So we're doing a lot of stuff with that particular group.
Yeah, which you probably wouldn't have even necessarily when you thought, you know, you were probably thinking like, oh, parents will buy these for their kids.
Totally.
Not thinking like even like how big and how massive they can be. So there's probably things that you haven't even thought of yet. But what I love, I think for me, the biggest thing that I kind of got out of what you talked about today, it's interesting, right? The pharmaceutical background, right? So we so often think of treating things with drugs, right? And you working in that industry and probably thinking, well, how does that relate? But, you know, obviously this is the yin to that yang, right? And you working in film and doing that, you know, because that's how you're going to get the word out. So I love that it's kind of like you don't always need to know the full path. You just have to kind of know that like, these things will come together at some point. And now it feels like it's like the aha moment has finally hit you, and your why seems so strong that no matter what, like I feel like you're going to persevere. You're going to hear a lot more no's, I'm sure, but you're going to hear a couple yeses that could be just so big time. Right? And that's so exciting. Have we hired people to help? Like I know you said you've outsourced maybe some.
I did, yeah. I hired a really great marketing team. I hired a great social media team. We experimented with some online ads. That's been new for me. Other than that, it's mostly been myself.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible that you can start something like this. Because most people are like, I don't know where to go. Right? And my last guest like really hired on people quite early. And franchise wax on and did the whole franchising thing. And so she's obviously a lot of the things that she talks about are dealing with the people, dealing with the culture, right? Where yours is really just like trying to get in front of the right people who can make these massive decisions. That's so cool. Well, if I can ever help or think of anyone, I don't even know who I know, but you know, your network can be so vast, right? And it's just so funny, you sitting here today, how many people we know, we're like 1 degree away. I know everyone always says 6 degrees is separated.
It's 1 degree away.
1 degree.
It is 1 degree away.
Right? So I'm sure there's some people watching and listening that might say, like, I might be able to help with that cause and we can get some more. I actually think adults should have these as well. I mean, like, who doesn't want to cuddle?
I know. I sell them to adults. You'd be surprised.
I know. I'm like holding this now and I'm like, I feel calmer. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Any lasting words, anything that like we didn't touch on that you kind of want to say, you know, if people are listening and they're either in the same boat from a business perspective or they're listening and saying, look, I need to start my meditative practice. I have no idea what I'm doing or I'm scared for my kids. You know, wherever you want to take the last word.
I think just don't be scared. Just don't be nervous. I think whether you're starting something new, there's always a fear there, but teaching our kids this stuff, if it means that you can't get there yourself, teach it to your kids. I remember being pregnant and thinking like, oh, I'm going to actually take some time to chill and relax because it's good for the baby. It was harder for me to do it, but I knew it was good for my child. Sometimes that helps people, but I really feel like understanding that we have that just getting that whole concept out of we have physical fitness and we have mental fitness. 50% of our body is inside. We can't see it. Why are we ignoring it? We really need to start the conversation around your inside body, not just your outside body, and how do we strengthen those mental muscles? We can do a bicep curl with weights to make our muscles strong. How do we do more bicep curls with our mental muscles?
Well, you know what it probably is because when you do the bicep curl, I mean, it takes a while before you notice a difference, but you still notice it faster. Something to do with like the mental fitness, you don't really see the change so much as maybe other people start to notice it. And that's when you're like, okay, I think I'm onto something. You know, just this last week, my 101-year-old grandmother just had a stroke. She's been completely healthy, living on her own up until this point. And we went to visit her in the hospital. And I tell you, this woman, you know, she hasn't eaten anything now in days. She can't speak currently. It's quite sad. But the doctor comes in, and this woman, she sees the doctor come in, rips the sheets off. She's like, look at all these things I can do. And I'm like, this woman, you know, the mental strength. Because she's so weak physically. But this woman has made it through wars, famine, Spanish flu. Like she's like a cat. She has 9 lives. I'm like, I can't believe what this woman goes through. But it's that mental strength. Right?
Sometimes the stuff we can't measure is where the magic is. That's what we need to learn because our world has been so focused on measuring. We're now starting to measure the impact of meditation. It's scientifically proven now. But we've always been so focused, whether it's been our medical, whatever it's been, on measuring all these physical, all these, outcomes. Sometimes it's hard to measure, but that's often where the magic is.
And that thing kind of heals a lot of other things too. Well, I'm going to leave it at that because I mean, where else do you go after that? Thank you so much for being here and sharing your story and sharing this with the world. I hope every kid eventually will have one of these. So thank you. And we'll see you next time, guys.